Welcome to the True That Show, a show about lifepreneurship presented with wit, humor, and banter by Deborah Drummond and Caroline Blanchard. A lifepreneur is someone who's living life the way an entrepreneur runs their business. All in. Lifepreneurs are rock stars. Lifepreneurs are people who are brave, who risk, who live full on, who think out of the box, who win this thing called life. Lifepreneurs are around us every day. They are everyday heroes. Join Deborah and Caroline, these two stage-walking women who tell it like it is. You'll learn from the most incredible lifepreneurs who will inspire you to be the best version of you. Now here are your hosts.
Good morning, Caroline. How are you today?
I'm good. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're happy to have you here. So today, just like always, we have an amazing guest speaker. And when I say amazing, I truly mean it. But let's start with Deb.
There you go. The pod got thrown early. Did you guys catch that? It was like, I was just ready to go listen to this amazing speaker. And then it's me. So yes, welcome back. Thank you for coming to the True That Show. We are excited today. Like Caroline says, it is amazing how energy works, right? It's just amazing how energy works. The quality of speakers that have such profound, messages to say. I am just loving this process. Thank you so much for listening. And Caroline, as we were talking to Gretchen earlier, we were talking about, hey guys, we're going to talk about money today. Yes, grab your pen and paper. We're going to talk about money today, but we're going to talk about an aspect of money that literally gave me a visual of myself running to the candy store when I got my allowance. And so I don't know about you guys, but
wait. How much was your allowance weekly? 25 cents?
It used to start off in coins. And what Caroline's doing, by the way, is she's highlighting my age. That's what she's doing. She's highlighting my age. Okay. So it used to, okay. I won't tell you how old I am, but I will tell you what I bought with my candy. So I was a big candy person, which is funny. And Caroline will make fun of me later because I don't eat sugar. I haven't eaten sugar in 30 years, but I think I downloaded enough sugar when I was younger. So I used to get my allowance and I used to run to the store, and there was two stores that I would go to. When I first started getting allowance, I used to go to the store that I used to buy caramels individual, the yellow bananas, and the strawberries that were like kind of fluffy and sugar all over. And we used to get our candy in a little paper bag. And I would spend every single penny I had. And then I advanced as I got older and got more chores, which the list was long. I think my kids would roll over if they had to realize what I was doing. But right? They're like, hey, I need a new pair of Yeezys. You're like, those are $700. Like, did you actually, I don't know, did you paint my home or something? But I remember getting upgraded when my allowance got upgraded. And because my mother was very strict, we were allowed to only have what she considered healthy cereals. So shredded wheat, puffed wheat, Rice Krispies, and on the special occasion, Cheerios. So I was like, not special enough. And I used to get my allowance. I used to run to the store and I used to get Frankenberry, Boo Berry, and Count Chocula. So I had enough to do that. And on extra special weeks that I babysat more, I was able to buy some powdered sugar donuts. I spent everything I had. And so the reason I'm telling you this story is because that's what flashed into my head when we were talking about something it's just a little bit more important. And it's kind of one of the pillars of what Gretchen teaches. And it's about when you get money. It's about when you have money, when you receive money. And it correlates, I think she was talking about how it correlates to how we feel we deserve money, right? They talk about, I buy lottery tickets. I know some people don't, some people do. And they talk about something like a huge 78% of people that win the lottery in 4 years have less money than they did when they had the lottery because they couldn't handle the money because they didn't feel like they could deserve the money. And so they didn't do their personal work. And whatever it is, she's going to tell us about that. But it is an interesting thing to watch people sabotage at different levels in our lives, right? Caroline, have you ever, now you can tell us what you bought with yours. I don't know what you bought with your allowance, but soccer balls, maybe something like that. Did you ever sabotage? What did you spend your allowance money on, girl?
I started playing sports at 38, by the way. Never played sports before. Well, since you touched the whole culinary aspect of it, and then, what did I buy? Well, yes, it was the 1 penny candy. Gosh, when we think about that, and they were there with their hands counting and touching every single candy you would put in your in your mouth. What days have changed, times have changed. But yes, I would buy, and I'm not going to say everything that I was buying because some, my kids may listen to those podcasts eventually. um, but yes, I would get 50 cents a week. uh, so that's why I was kidding you. But no, self-sabotaging for me became more of a reality when I was older, because I think that, first of all, when we're kids and we get our allowance, we do feel, and that's probably why we're laughing at our kids now, we feel so deserving. It's like you're even looking at the neighbor like, why don't you give me money? It's like kids feel like everything belongs to them and we should give it and give it for absolutely no reason. And I feel that I hear you on the chores. My kids do nothing and they actually even whine when I vacuum and I ask them to move their feet. They're like, oh, and I'm like, oh my gosh, really? I had to do that every week. Anyway, totally falling off the subject here. But I think that as we grow older, there's one big thing that starts hitting us, is that we all want to be rich. We all want to, we all want the big thing. We all want something. But quite often when we want that something, we know it's possible and it would be amazing, but for other people. So I realized that as I was getting successful, that was always my blockage, because every single time I would get to a level that could get me to the, what I wanted, I was self-sabotaging in different ways, different ways. It's like, I remember, that's also a side story, but in my marriage, when everything was going well and I was just sitting there and I was just like, wow, it's kind of boring. Like everything is good. And then you start self-sabotaging. So you're like, oh, you didn't pick up your socks, because you need to create something, create action. And I think that goes in a lot of different areas. And it was total side thing here, but I think that a lot of people will relate to that, because sometimes when we're happy and content, it's calm. So we're not too sure what to do. We're like, what do I do now? Like, what can I mess up to have to fix? It's the same with our money. Sometimes we earn a lot of money, and then when we have it, it's kind of boring to deposit in the bank. It's kind of boring. And it's like, a lot of people are thinking like, oh, I want 1 million. Okay, when you have your 1 million and you bought the clothes you want and you have the house you want, your 1 million will be in the bank. You realize that's boring. Or an investment, and you will watch it on paper. Do you realize it will be boring? So I think that a lot of people think they want that, but we're not ready to go there for some reason. And thank God that there's some people that are actually teaching about all of these things, like Gretchen Heinen, Gretchen Heinen, that we will welcome to our podcast. So Gretchen is an amazing businesswoman. She's a coach, she's a teacher, she's a nurse. And on top of that, she has multiple stream of incomes, and she also has a podcast. So Gretchen, welcome to our show. It's a pleasure to have you on. Sorry, and I'm trying to multitask here. We definitely need a producer in the corner. Hi, Gretchen.
Hi, Caroline. How are you? Oh my gosh. Hi, Deborah.
Hey, nice to have you.
It's so great to be here. And I loved listening to you two talk about your allowances and the candy. I can relate to all of it. So I definitely had chores and allowances, and we used to ride our bike to the gas station because, you didn't have all this chauffeuring back then. You had to either take your feet or your bike.
I know. And do you remember, like, if you would find a beer can or a Coke can or whatever, you would pick it up because it was worth 5 cents?
Oh, yes.
Like now my kids are just recycling it and I'm like, hey, bring it back to the store. And they're like, why? Really?
Oh, it's so true. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to talk about this. My favorite topic is just talking about building wealth and, especially believing that you deserve it and can have it and what to do with it when you get it.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into that, I gave a bit of your story, but talk to us about what brought you to do what you're doing today.
Mm. You know, what brought me to doing what I'm doing today was a recession, was the '08 recession. I found myself, my husband and I found ourselves high earners after the '08 recession with a low income now because our incomes dropped, and a lifestyle that could not support a low income. You know, we had the boat and we had all the things, and we felt invincible. And that recession really humbled us and showed us that if you don't build wealth and you're just expecting that every 2 weeks this money that you have built up is going to be there, that you are going to be in a rough situation the next time a recession comes. And we're obviously due for one. It's been over 10 years. And if you follow anything in finance, you know that they follow about a 10-year cycle. So now is the time that we need to be preparing for that.
You know, isn't that interesting how, I mean, how many stories have we heard and how many stories have we told about things become very real when they become very us? You know, we talk about our children, you know, like not having the reality or the perspective that we had. So their generation, and you can imagine the generation that comes after them. But until something feels personal, until it kind of hits you, until you have that epiphany of like, this feels boring, you know, and I also think that when you're in the climb, you know, you're in the climb, it's complex. You're tired, you're staying up late, and then when you arrive, it's not like you miss the drama, but you miss something and it feels like something's not right. I think it takes a while for the body to kind of align. And then, like you said, so that must have been quite the reality check for you guys.
Yeah, it definitely was. And there was a point where I laid awake at night wondering if my cell phone bill, which is, you know, what, $100, $200, was going to withdraw from my bank account before the next payment that was coming in. So that tells you how low the account got. And I remember laying in bed wondering this. And I thought, I can't believe my life has gotten to the point where I'm wondering what bill is going to bounce my account, right? Like, I haven't had this happen since I was 16 because I had learned how to make money. And so that night I just prayed and I was like, all right, God, if you get me out of this, I will make a podcast. I'll do whatever. And that's sort of how Net Worth It was born, was just me saying, like, feeling like I needed to cash in on that promise that I was going to help people, because people are afraid to talk about money. They're afraid to talk about how to get it. The successful people often don't tell you how they got it. They just flash it. And they especially don't talk about what to do once you get it, right? Because learning how to make money, you can do that a lot of different ways, but what do you do with it when you get it so that it multiplies and it grows? That's, you know, and I'm not a financial advisor, but sometimes it's better to learn these things from a regular person, because financial advisors can use really complicated language that's hard to understand or feels intimidating. And a lot of it's just basic math skills, you know, it's basic living in a way that is what your life can support, and learning how to save it and not keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, there's a lot of things that go along with that, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yes, and I find it so interesting what you just said, that people are scared about talking about money, because, like, let's face it, the new generation, it seems like there's absolutely no filters except on Instagram. But you know, I was sitting with my 13-year-old, and my husband got a raise, and she was like, so how much more is he making a year? And instantly I went to how I was raised. Like, you don't ask ever how much someone is making a year. You don't ask the cost of things. You don't, like, I have an uncle who always, like, had the bigger house and everything. Like, we could not ask or talk about it. We were poor, and it was just like, that's your reality and that's it. And I was going to answer this way to my daughter, and then I just thought about it, and I'm like, it's her father, you know, it's okay. And but I still had to give her, like, the background of, like, okay, even if we tell you, you don't go out and talk about it with your friends, or because it's considered as bragging, and you don't. But there's something that I find a bit sad in there, because it's always associated to bragging or greed, or, you know, I feel like it's in the words that you said. That's what I heard as well. Like, don't, you know, people are scared of talking about that. So how do you go about that?
Well, it just takes people like us who start the conversation. I'll post my net worth on Instagram. I will, just really talking about, and, not being, I think one thing I've noticed about why people don't talk about it is, number one, the bragging that you mentioned. I think a lot of really wealthy people, that's what their take is on it. But if they never take the time to educate people how they got there, we are never going to rise up people off of government assistance. Like, that is the main problem, is that those people who are on assistance, I mean, this could go a whole new direction. We're not going to go, but the problem is if we never teach the next generation or people who are struggling, here's how you earn money. Here's what you do with it when you get it. Here's where it should go. Oh, you just started a business. Okay. You just made a couple $1,000s. Here's what I would recommend you do with that money. When do you quit your job? When you start an entrepreneur endeavor? When is the amount that you're making on your entrepreneurship that now it's time to quit the W-2 income? Like, no one's having those conversations. So I think the first thing is people like us just have to start talking about it and normalizing it. And then secondly, we have to realize there's always going to be someone who has more money than us, and there's always going to be someone who has less money than us. I think that's a big reason people don't want to talk about it. Like entrepreneurs, for example, if you have less than another person, some people would consider that less successful, or that person's further ahead, right? And so then people are like, well, I don't want people to think I'm not far ahead, so I just won't talk about it. Then they won't ever know. But a lot of entrepreneurship isn't measured with money. Like, time freedom is the most valuable asset that there is. So if you can make $20,000 as an entrepreneur, and that's enough for your household for you to not work in a like soul sucking job, I would consider you successful, even though you're making 20 grand. Like, you just freed all your time. That's amazing. So I think we just need to change our level of what is success. And it doesn't have to be 6 figures. It doesn't have to be 7 figures. It has to be creating money in a way that feels meaningful to you and gives you energy at the end of your day and purpose. And that's what we should measure as success. And then money doesn't feel so right or wrong.
I think that's a really important message. And I hear people just starting to talk about that. There's some people that I follow in the world of social media. Because I think there's a concern of the impression, because we know that social media, for the most part, is the best parts of our lives. It's the stuff that people aspire to. It's, that's why our sons, our daughters, our nieces, our nephews, like, their aspiration is the best part of other people's lives, which I think is so important to, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. And what we do here, and, thank you, is that we talk about the insides. I mean, we talk about, like, I love how Caroline talks about, like, how the guts, it's kind of like the guts and the truth behind how you really got to where you are and what does success mean to you. The interesting thing that I think we were talking about earlier is that when you get a sense that you're starting to get that success, and then all of a sudden, so I used to run a holistic treatment center, and people used to come and shift. I mean, you're a coach, you see the magic of them shifting, and they're coming for the 6-hour treatment that's going to change everything for their body. They're going to leave healthier, they're going to leave happier. And I got to the point where I had to make people do a 50% deposit, and it is an expensive treatment, non-refundable. And the reason why I had to do that was because it was funny how all of a sudden their tires needed changing on their car, or the fridge stopped working, or they had an unexpected expense, or an unexpected person come into town. And I'm like, I think you're kind of manifesting that in some kind of universal message, because 2 weeks ago, you were so happy to get booked in, and I had to make it non-refundable. Like, you are going to lose thousands of dollars if you don't show up. And I try to test my boundaries, right? Because you're just on some level sabotaging. How do you say that to people? How do you work with that? Because you work with it. This is your experience.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, and it's such a good point. So I have a personal story about this that the listeners can relate to. So at one point in a very successful period in my life, I made $200,000 from in about a couple of months from an investment that I had. And so I was like, that's the most amount I'd ever had in my checking account at that point, right? Like, we're not talking like in your 401k, like, it was literally in my checking account, and I would open up my phone and be like, dang, ring, and I upgraded my wedding ring for a $6,000 wedding ring. Cause I'm like, I deserve this, like I've had the same ring. Actually, my ring got stolen. So I was like, I deserve this even more. My last one got stolen. And, and I like worked less cause I'm like, I don't need to work that hard this year, so I didn't work as much. And I did all these actions that resulted in spending about $100,000 that year of that money, and went on all these trips, and just was so, looking back, I can see how irresponsible it was. But in that moment, I could not see that. That's what you're talking about. And the funny thing is this happens at every level, right? The level you described is things happening to you, like your car breaking down. So when I start to work with people, and, I'm very religious. And so I believe that there's a spiritual component when this stuff happens to us, whatever you believe. I believe that there are like light and dark energies in the world, right? Light and dark forces. And so I think when we pronounce that we're going to change our life, there are going to be resistance. Some people call this resistance that happens to you. And so I tell people, expect it. Right. So you just need to expect that now that you've declared you're going to change your life, there are going to be things that come up. Your kid's going to get sick. It's like how every time I started a new nursing job, my daughter got a cold like the third day of that job, and you're like, third day, like I got a cold and sick on the third day, but you just have to realize, like, I know this is going to happen because this is natural law. This is spiritual warfare. This is whatever you believe it to be. I know it's going to happen. So I'm going to decide now how I'm going to show up when it happens, right? I'm not going to decide when it happens. I'm going to decide beforehand. So I've just decided I'm going to start a business. When I get resistance, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call my friend and cry. I'm going to give myself 2 hours to be upset about it. I'm going to have $1,000 in a savings account that is just for emergencies, so that when something comes up, that's what I'm going to have for stuff to come up. So it's kind of like planning ahead for what you're going to do when something bad happens, and I learned this from a coach, and I was like, this is genius. I just decide ahead of time what I'm going to do to handle things. And then when you're in the moment and you're emotional, you can draw on that resource.
Well, that's
sorry. I need to you
yeah.
that about your daughter. I don't know, Deb, if you remember, but when I started, like Deb and I met in Australia, that was the first trip I was taking away from my kids for so long. And it started with me negotiating, like, I would go 7 days, and then the little voice behind my, in my head was like, you don't go to Australia for 7 days. Come on. And then extended it to 2 weeks, and blah, blah, ended up being gone 4 weeks. But when I really decided to jump in my business and really, being an entrepreneur and like not having any safety net, every single time I would leave the house, the next day my daughter would be sick. And I'm not talking really sick, doctor, antibiotics, fever. And every single trip was like that. And I was just, and not that I was traveling that much, but probably like 5 to 6 times a year. So the guilt was just eating me inside. And I was just like, of course, every single time I'm not there, she has to be sick. But I guess that unconsciously, I really did what you said. At some point I would travel, and I would almost, like, one time I booked a doctor appointment. And my husband was like, well, she's okay. And I'm like, yeah, but she won't be. You will need the doctor appointment. And I'm like, if she is, just do a general health check. So, I started planning, and then people were just like, well, you're attracting it. And I was just like, no, it's going to happen. That's how she reacts to it. Like, my 2 other kids would not react, but she would. So I love how you say, plan how you will show up, plan ahead how you will deal with it. And that's really into everything and anything. So absolutely loving that. So if we transfer that to really the money subject, how would you suggest to, I would say an average person that decides, okay, I'm starting an extra stream of income. How will I react when I have this money? Because I'm guilty too, that when I go up a level in my company, or when I make a nice bonus, I sit back and relax after. And then I have, wise people like that will tell me, what do you think that got you there? Well, that's what you need to keep on doing, you know? So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm going to stop talking.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would say, because since I went through spending 100 grand in a year of money that could have gone into a lot of things, right? What I learned from that experience and what I tell myself now is to not be motivated by the money. And that's really what I think gets people into unsuccessful habits is, when you're trying to hit a rank or you're trying to gain a certain amount of customers because you're going to make $1,000 per customer. And so then it's about the how many thousands am I going to make versus how many lives I'm going to change. Then what ends up happening is you become motivated by the money. So then when the money is full, your motivation doesn't need to be as high, right? And so if you can make it more about like, what is the problem that I am solving in the world? Like, not, what is my product or service, but what is the actual problem that I solve, right? And so I know you ladies, one of the things you do is network marketing, right? And so I've heard you talk about single motherhood and having not enough money when you're a single mom, right? So maybe one of the motivations would be, I am going to help find single mothers and show them a new way. Well, when that's your motivation and it's not about how much money you get for helping the single mothers, I get fired up about thinking about a single mom who can pay her bills and isn't like laying awake trying to figure it out. Like that fires me up, right? And so, and I have single moms in my community too. And when I see them thrive, I just like smile so big, right? So I think it's about staying motivated by the problem you solve. Maybe it's not a person, maybe the problem you solve is clean water. I don't care what your business is. It doesn't even matter, right? Maybe you help with life straws. I don't even know. Whatever a person who's listening to this does. But if whatever that problem is, just stay so in tune to what it feels like to solve that problem. And money will come, and then you won't have to worry about your motivation going up and down. That's just what I've tried to do.
That's a great philosophy. And I think it's because it's giving people purpose, right? And I think that there needs to be some kind of balance around that, because as we build our dream boards, right, which is a great thing to do, as we revisit our why, we have to revisit it because our life is changing, and you need to up your why or remember your why. Or I think you need to keep filling that purpose bucket, because why I got in to my extra income is not why I have to get in today. It changes. It still might be about my kids. It still might be, but it's a whole different ballgame. I think that's really interesting. And I think honestly, there's something about, we just don't know what to do when we get to that place where the money starts, especially if you're not there yet. Especially if you're not there yet. When you're in that middle zone, it's difficult to celebrate. And when you guys were talking earlier about how people not sharing their income, I was definitely raised with that. You never asked anybody what they made. You never, first of all, children were supposed to be seen and not heard or something like this, right? Wasn't that the whole story? And so when that question gets asked, it is a little interesting to navigate that. And then do you tell them to celebrate or keep it quiet? And I remember, I think if we could change people's experiences of receiving to massive celebration, and if people can celebrate for each other, whether they're there or past there, then I think that would be important. Just change it to a celebration. I remember seeing a meme, and it was Elon Musk that said, something along the lines of, and I won't quote him exactly because I don't remember exactly, but I actually screenshotted it. I look at it occasionally and I laugh because I'm the party planner. Like, you got a baby coming, you got a birthday coming, you guys, like, I'll throw the party. And I remember, that's why I used to own 2 home party companies, because I just like to party. But I remember it saying something like, we have baby showers for people when they have babies. Why are we not having, business showers for when they start their own business, right? And to get people to own the celebration part of it, I think is difficult, because especially when you've come from something and you're not there yet, you don't feel like you have a right to celebrate yet. That middle piece, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And especially with the business, okay, so let's talk network marketing for a little bit. You could have a network marketing company that sells smoothies, and people will say negative things about you when you start it. But if you opened like a brick and mortar smoothie business, all your friends would be lined up outside the door to buy a smoothie, so some industries just have gone through a lot of having extra bravery needed, right? For certain industries. But what to your point is more about the income that people are not celebrating when they make it. And I for whenever I have somebody who's in our business who succeeds, I shout them out and we do posts about them and testimonials about them, because we want to change that story that you should be able to celebrate. You should be able to post on Facebook. Hey, even if you're not a business owner, you should be able to do a post that says, hey, I just got a promotion today and it's a 20 grand raise. That should not be something that you can't say. Like, that should be something people celebrate, because money is the currency that gives us everything in life. So when people act like they don't care about money, I'm like, well, do you care about your lights? Do you care about the car you drive? Do you care about your kids' hockey bill? Like, all of that's paid for by money. So if you care about those things, you kind of have to care about money. We don't live in the trade economy. We live in like a currency economy. So I love that. And I want to change that. So I'm looking for anybody who's willing to come along.
I was going to say, that's awesome. It's funny. I think it's going to be a little uncomfortable for some people. And I commend your verbiage in network marketing. I think it is about bravery, right? Because there's been that old paradigm of this person makes money because this person doesn't. It's like you get and someone else lost for you to get, right? And that's, I think, where we are in a world of this competition is moving to collaboration. You have a podcast. We have a podcast. You have the market, same demographic pretty well. So do we. You're in network marketing. So do we. You do multiple streams. So do you. You have an organizer. We have an organizer. And right. But here we are, like, laughing, like, yay. Like, I want to hear about your next celebration. I think it takes maturity. I think it takes thought leaders. I think it needs to take a different paradigm. And I'll tell you, I learned about collaboration from my 17-year-old. I really did, with all these brands that are collaborating. And I'm like, look at these companies collaborating. Now look at their purchasing power, right? But anyways, let's get a little bit more into, you're here, you're a coach. What do you do for people? What's your passion? What's your power? What's your, you've got an amazing podcast with, tens of thousands of followers. What do they come to hear from you?
Oh man. Well, I appreciate you guys asking me about this. So, I mean, really what my passion is to help people to stop scrolling all the time and wasting time and actually living their life and living their dreams. And one of the ways that I do that, we have a free 5-day challenge called dreamsoverscreens.com. So if you just type in dreamsoverscreens.com, you can enter your email and it will every day send you a video for 5 days that teaches you, if you are a new business owner or thinking about starting a business, how to organize contacts, how to build relationships, how to spend less time on your phone and more time with your family. Because most people building a business have another source of income, like a job, right? Most of us don't just quit everything to start a business. We kind of build it in the pockets of our life because that's what's necessary. And so Dreams Over Screens really teaches people how to do that. So, that's kind of what I'm passionate about, is like, stop wasting time. Building a business doesn't actually take that much time if you know what you're doing, you have the right relationships, you have the wisdom, right? And you can do it in the pockets of your day, especially collaborative things like, referral or network marketing or affiliate marketing. That stuff can totally be done in the pockets of your day. So that's kind of what I'm passionate about, and helping people to turn their ideas into income. So if you really have something that you have been dreaming about, we have people who want a t-shirt and they want to start a movement around it. We have people who are coaches. We have people who have brick and mortar businesses and they really just want to grow their customer base. They want people to know who they are and really create a movement. That's what we help people with at Know Worth It. So
I would suggest that you reveal to us your 5 pillars, because I think it says a lot about who you are, and maybe just a little touch on each.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. So the first pillar, so we in our programs walk people through 5 steps. The first step is breaking generational hindrances. And, we are a faith-based company, so we talk about praying it off of you. But this is like where your mom got pregnant when she was 16 and you got pregnant when you're 16, so that's what a generational hindrance is. In my family, some of the generational hindrances were bankruptcy and believing that making a lot of money and losing it. My parents filed for bankruptcy a bunch of times. Well, then look what I did. I went and spent $100,000 when I earned it, And so it's breaking that. I'm not going to have the same history as my family. That's step one, because if you don't fix that step, none of the other steps work. They all build on each other. The second step is creating a worthy mindset that you actually believe you can make money and earn money and that you're worthy of it. We're born with a birthright to earn. It's just that not everyone's taught that, right? So it's believing it, learning it from someone to teach it to you. The third one is leveling up your relationships. And so this kind of looks like, when you have a person who learns money wisdom, but their environment is all trash, it's really hard to be successful. So who you surround yourself with matters. A lot of people in our programs, they ditch loser boyfriends when they get in there. They start making friends with people that they didn't think they were worthy to be friends with. And that collaborative piece, like we were talking about earlier, how you ladies write books and collaborate with authors and publish best-selling books, right? That's collaborative, that's relationships. And then the fourth step is what we talked about today on the podcast about having a strong money wisdom or creating money wisdom. So once you earn the money, what do you do with it? And then the fifth pillar, which is the last pillar, is to create extra income streams. And it's funny, people think that's where you should start, is creating an extra income stream. Well, it's actually not. If you don't do the other things, you'll never get the income stream off the ground. You'll probably quit. So you kind of have to layer them and then finally do the extra income stream at the top.
I love that. I love that because you're right. It reminds me of like a mentor that I follow, Jeff Olson, who always says, everyone thinks that success is a precursor to happiness. So everyone thinks I'm going to build on that. And it's completely the opposite. Happiness will be the precursor to success. And what you just said there, like the order is exactly the same. You don't start by, getting rich. You have to start by changing everything, not changing everything, but adjusting everything to be ready to be rich. And then you can work on that. And I think that that's where a lot of people have it wrong, and I don't buy lottery and I respect everyone who does, but I was raised with my mom that we would sit on the weekend planning what we would do with $1 million if we won. So now I realize how messed up that was because I was always like, it's okay, it's coming. We didn't win this Wednesday, but probably in a month, it's all going to be okay. So just a mentality. But for me, that's the lottery mentality of like, well, it's going to happen. So then everything's going to be fixed and, we're going to be okay. But I like how you really place that in order of importance. And if people, I guess we're coming to a close of a show, so can't speak anymore. If people want to reach you, Gretchen, to take advantage of your 5-step program or just have a chat with you, how can they reach you?
Yes. Well, I hang out on Instagram every day, but not all day, because in Dreams Over Screens, you will learn that is the worst way to spend your time. But I hop on there twice a day, once in the morning, once at night, and check messages. So we have an Instagram handle for the podcast called networthit.org. That's our Instagram handle, networthit.org, all one word. And you can also just search my name, Gretchen Heinen. You'll find my personal account. On my personal account, it's a lot of pictures of our kids and traveling and fun stuff we're doing. But on Net Worth, it's where all the wisdom is.
Awesome. And do you have anything to say to our audience before we close and give the word to Deb? Because Deb always wants to have the last word, so we need to let her finish the show.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I like to do that in my marriage too.
Before giving your moment, is there something you would like to?
Well, I would just encourage your listeners to engage with the different things that you guys have set up to help them be successful. The books and this podcast, and really you are going to get what you put into it. So just to reach out to Deb and Caroline and really engage in what you have to help them be successful. I know your books have been a tremendous help for people, even if they've been in business 10 years. And so that's what I would just encourage your listeners to do, is like, just never give up, just keep going. Don't let one bad day end your success. Just brush yourself off and keep going.
Awesome. It's all yours.
Well, there you go. There's the pot. Maybe I'll throw it back one day. Okay. So we were talking earlier about me and Caroline. I'm going to get a t-shirt, say business wife, right? We've got a great marriage. So thank you so much for coming on. And I think if there's anything that I got from this, and I hope that it's not only people get an epiphany, but they actually breathe. And it's okay, right? Like, it's okay that Caroline dinged her car after she got the new car. And, and it's okay that, the stuff that you go through in kind of relationships, or you go from a phase of maybe creating drama or trouble because you don't know how to move that energy. And like, this is all a learning curve. And if you are like most entrepreneurs, you kind of put, the pot first, and then you figure out how to sell it, right? You're the baker that makes the most amazing croissants. So you're going to open a bakery, when you start croissants, you're like, oh, it might be good if I have a menu. It might be good if I, so a lot of times if you're the person that's put the pot first and you have this great idea, and then you got to figure out about yourself later, well, then jump into network marketing, right? And all three of us can talk about that, because I think most businesses, traditional businesses, or, the bravery of network marketing, you called it, it's like, it's a product with a personal development, attached to it. And I was listening to, ironically, I was listening to someone this morning, and he was talking like a sermon. And he's like, for all of you out there that want it right away, like you want that 100,000, that 200,000, that 100 million, that this, and he was talking about in the sense of, it was more of a sermon. And he's like, you could be praying, you could be asking the universe, you could be writing it in your book, you could be like every day, don't get frustrated. He goes, if you want that Mercedes and you're running for that Mercedes and you want that Mercedes, he goes, a good father, which you would very much relate to that statement. A good father is not going to give their 5-year-old a Mercedes. So if you're not ready for the Mercedes, God ain't giving it, right? Just keep getting ready. And I think that's part of it, like the self-discovery and letting in good people, letting in good relationships. You talked about shifting relationships, right? Or relationships that can't shift with you. And what does that look like? And how do you play with the dynamic? All of this takes time. It takes time. It takes learning. And, no matter where people are at, contacting someone like Gretchen, no matter where you're at, and that is the facade that you are at a 6-figure income and you got it. You got something, but you may not necessarily got it, right? And so going to the people that have been there and know that and can take you no matter what stage you're at, right? So I think that the information you share is applicable to anyone in any stage of their business or life, because sometimes when your marriage is rocking, your business isn't, and it applies across the line. So anyways, I just wanted to share that, because that was a big one for me this morning, the epiphany. It's like that 5-year-old that wants the Mercedes. Oh, Daddy, I want that car. It's like, would I be a responsible father giving that? Because he's going to crash it, not ready for it yet. So just keep staying ready. I think that's what I got from today as well. Anyways, thank you so much. And Caroline, as always, it's a pleasure. I don't know where you find these gemstones, but you do. So you must be doing something right. So you're vibrating on the right level. I'm looking forward to a continued relationship with the three of us. I think we got some good stuff ahead of us. And listeners, thank you so much for coming on and supporting. So please, go to the YouTube and subscribe. We want to be able to share this with you as soon as it comes out. And if you think that you have something that you'd like to share with our audience on the True That Show, if you're willing to get a little, open and share some stuff about yourself, we'd be happy to hear from you, as well as we are launching the Ultimate Entrepreneur Planner. So if you are in business or want to be in business or rocking at your business and want to tighten that up, we actually have over 100 spots open for people. That's not going to be the same by next week, to be able to put in a quote. Your personal quote, not a quote from somebody else that you like. You actually got to step up and stand up and put your words on paper and get a quote into our planner. So please contact us. But with that,
I decided what my quote will be.
Oh,
It's going to be on the week of your birthday, and I'm going to say, Deb wants the last word.
Okay, so the week of December 18th, that quote's been sold. It's done. It's over. Well, now that gets me thinking. What am I going to do the week of September 25th, my friend?
Nothing, because I'm taking care of the graphics. So anyway, thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thank you,
All
guys.
right.